Hey, it's Chris with Acton Creative, and this is a Handwoven Experience. In today's episode, I am bringing you an intro to weaving inlay. Let's cover some of the basics first, shall we? What is inlay? Inlay refers to an additional weft that is decorative in your fabric. This is not the weft that's holding it together. No. You already have a weft for that job. It is making sure that your fabric is functional, everything is all set there, it's not gonna fall apart. An inlay is an additional weft that kind of floats along the surface and adds some punch, some interest, something really kind of fun and different. Think of it as a tray of lemon bars. They're delicious on their own. But then you go and sprinkle a little bit of powdered sugar over the top. Chef's kiss. Mwah! So much better. It's just that little something extra that takes it from lovely to wow. Inlay has the power to do that. So let's talk about why you'd want to incorporate some inlay into a future project. I think what's amazing about inlay is that it can either be very planned out or it can be completely spontaneous. I have certainly done projects where I made a whole cartoon, like a whole graphic of exactly how I wanted to look, and I measured things carefully and I put them exactly where they're supposed to go, and it looked lovely. It was great. But there's also times that you can add inlays on the fly, and sometimes those can be actually even more impactful. Imagine you're starting a project and you're just a couple inches into it, but you can see already that's not quite the wow factor that you were anticipating. Something's just not as interesting. My friend, at any point, you can randomly find some interesting yarn or other materials and add some inlays to your project. Off the cuff, right like that, just as you go. And as weavers, I realize sometimes spontaneity is a little tricky for us, but it's so much fun once you kind of relax and let yourself just add things as you go. Inlay is a great way to do that. So let me show you a little how-to for how to add some inlay. My project here is actually an inlay sampler. I am trying all the things and having so much fun with it. So I set it up so it's a very simple fabric. It's just designed for plain weave. This is the workhorse. This is my weft that is holding it all together. So, like I said, just plain weave. Over, under, over, under. I'm gonna clear the shed, but I'm gonna leave the shafts up here. And then I'm gonna grab a fun little contrasting yarn for my inlay. Now, the downside of inlay is that it is hand manipulated. You gotta get your fingers in there. Or, depending on the size, the scale, I guess you could use a stick shuttle to help you out, but mostly I just use my fingers. So, place it wherever you want it. Leave the tails out or in, whatever your preference. Put it in place. Go the next pick. Throw your shuttle. Add your inlay. Off you go. That's all there is to it. There's nothing really scientific or specific about how the inlay is incorporated into the fabric. It's just a matter of doing it. So let me give you some fun ideas for what inlay can look like. First of all, one of the ways that I like to do it is to add some texture. I like to add little ends popping up through the fabric. I like to have some loops. I just think the texture component is really limitless. You can actually choose yarns that are highly textured for your inlay, or you can create texture with more mild-mannered yarns to add to the overall look. But I think it's such a fun way to add dimension by using inlays to provide texture in your project. So many options here, friends. Texture is a big one, and I love it. I know I had some friends that said it looks very 1970s. I'm like, yes, and I kind of dig that. Here's the next way to incorporate inlay into your fabric is to use it as a graphic element. Think of it as having your own like magic marker to make little squiggles and actually have like an outline, a line that can wander through your fabric. I haven't quite figured out how to spell out my name, but I'm sure that you could. There's all kinds of fun things that you could do just using a contrasting colored yarn that's going to pop against your fabric, and then just use that as like a little line to wander all around, creating joy and smiles everywhere. So use it as a graphic element. You could also use inlay for the colors. Woo! You know, I love to talk about color in any format. But as you're thinking about what yarns, what materials to use for your inlay, friends, it doesn't have to be one color. It can be multiple colors. It can be colors that blend with the current project. It can be contrasting colors. There are no rules here. So just think about ways that you can play with color as you are adding inlays to your project. And let's not forget that you can actually include other patterns as an inlay. I think what's so fun is, for example, in my project, I'm doing plain weave, but I did a little bit of a twill inlay. So you get this kind of cool look of another pattern, looks like overlaid onto your existing fabric. I know it's pretty common to see like a towel that has a little bit of an overshot inlay at the tail of it, or whatever. Friends, there are no rules. This is really up to you and your brilliant creative mind to think of ways that you can play with inlay as a nice little design feature in your project. Now, let's talk for a moment about how and where to apply inlay to your project. First of all, you could easily have some kind of inlaid element that runs the entire project. Absolutely. I like to do this when I am incorporating a little bit of recycled material, like if I have my beloved recycled neckties, and I'll put short little strips of them just every so many inches in a project. It just adds this little bit of sparkle, a little something unexpected to your project. So you could absolutely kind of work it in at an even spacing throughout your project, just to be part of the, it's a little icing on the cake. It's a little extra for your fabric. However, there are some brilliant ways that you can just add a little inlay at either end. Say you're doing a table runner, say you're doing placemats or a scarf. What if there's a little extra little diamond inlay at the bottom corner? What if there's a little row of a different pattern somewhere, a third of the way in? Think about all of the amazing little just additions, little something fun and sparkly and interesting that you can add to your fabric just by the magic of inlays. Now, friends, you may be thinking, okay, but I don't love any of that hand manipulated stuff. That just seems too slow, too cumbersome. I get it. It is gonna require that you slow down for a moment and use your fingers to move the materials around. However, my friend, it could absolutely be worth it to play with this just cool little tool, adding a little something extra to your already amazing project. I challenge you, if you haven't already played with inlay, give it a go. There's no limit to what you can do, and you never know how it may start a whole avalanche of other fun, creative design ideas. It's a good thing. So let me know in the comments. Have you already done a little inlay action? Have you already been playing with how inlay can zhuzh up your projects? Let me know in the comments. I would love to hear your experience. All right, friends. Have a wonderful week. Go play with some inlay, would ya? Happy weaving.